Hello and welcome to Northside NOW. This is the podcast where your three lovable hosts take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick, and with me as always are my two co-hosts, the illustrious Glenn Miller and the enigmatic man of mystery, Kevin Bryant.
How are you doing this week? Patrick? Glenn, he's looking pretty transparent over there.
Yeah, he's kind of thin.
That's because, folks, Patrick is not actually here.
He is married.
Of course, he was married last week, too.
Yeah, he's been married for 2 weeks almost. So I wonder if he realizes how quickly that time's going to go by.
Man,
I'm 28. What are you? 27, something like that?
26.
26. We're 28. You're 26. Yep. That happened like 2 weeks ago in a lot of ways.
Wait, now, what, 26 years or when we were married?
Yeah. So when were you married?
The 24th.
So, okay, we were the 4th.
Yeah.
And so you did 26 years. We're June 4th. Man, and like Celeste and we're June 23rd. They just were married for 2, 3, 4, 3 years, I think.
Yeah,
2 or 3.
It will fly by.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it is. But anyway, we're glad that he's still chilling.
Yeah, we're glad. We hope you're having a great time.
He's actually back now. But, I mean, when we recorded this, he wasn't. Really.
Yeah, he wasn't. And that's the reason you don't hear all those wonderful, well, the magic of Hollywood will make it happen. So
I think we've used more sound effects in this episode than all the others combined.
I really do. And I think if I use this one right here, or did I do that last week?
You did.
Patrick, we have used them all.
Maybe we'll have to find some new ones.
We have used them all. So we are much more efficient on the pad. Look at us.
Yes.
We're amazing.
Well, I'm excited. We have part 2, the Pastor Ted conversation.
Yeah.
We'll get into some other good stuff. But one of the things I've just enjoyed is looking back over all of our episodes of podcast. People would say, well, you just really, it's like the Seinfeld. You just talk about nothing. And sometimes that's true, but talking about the things that are on our minds, when we're talking about relationships with people, you meet people where they are.
Exactly.
And they've got stuff going on.
Which is the whole purpose of the podcast, was just meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
And I just so wish we could have some kind of interaction with people. I wish this could be even a bigger conversation instead of you listening in on our conversation, which is what we want. But we would love to hear you like driving and not screaming at the person in front of you for not using their blinker, but going, yeah, let me tell you, blah, 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 blah,
So, well, we're working on that.
Yes, we are. We're gonna do something. And even while we were doing this with Pastor Ted, I had an incredible idea. The band class, which is the boys' Sunday school class, has been challenged. You're given a project challenge with some old wood that we have here on the premises.
Okay.
And as we've been in here today doing our thing, I was like, they've not had a really good answer about what to do with all this old wood. Mm-hmm. And we may have to.
I'm sure we can put.
I think we can spice up the podcast room just for the live stream.
Yeah.
So I just had that idea while we were doing it.
That'd be great. I love that.
Now we got to make sure there's no living organisms in the wood. Which might be the challenge.
We introduce them to the church.
We might hear some other weird sounds on the podcast, and they'll just be, the podcast room's getting eaten alive. So,
hey, speaking of organisms, so has the big wave of cicadas hit?
I think it did over in the east and the northeast. In fact, I wonder if Patrick and them are just,
I know it did in Indiana because my brother lives pretty close to Ohio, east of Indianapolis, and he sent me a video of it.
Yeah.
And we had talked about it, and I expected it here, but I haven't really heard it I thought.
I think a lot of people expected it here, and I actually heard a report not long ago about how people were really disappointed.
I'm not.
They were really disappointed that the cicadas hadn't come out yet, and I remembered them from last time, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if we were a little cooler here. They're not here yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. We will see, but I don't know if the murder hornets got them all. I don't know if they caught COVID. I don't know what happened, but
yeah, I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm not really missing them.
But when they're out, you can really get a firsthand knowledge of what the plagues were like.
Oh yeah,
because they're just completely covering the little branches, underneath the leaves, and it's just everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know if the Egyptians had dogs. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. Because I know they had cats. They had pictures of them and stuff. But we have a bunch of frogs out at our new area. And it just seems like there's more frogs. And they're not the big bullfrogs. They're just the little hopping toads or whatever.
Yep.
But Chief, they drive him crazy. He loves to go out and he just wants to chase them, and they're all over the place. And so I can only imagine the dog owners and the cat owners of the plagues.
That's right.
Their dogs and cats were probably just driving them crazy.
Oh, my goodness.
Because, it's not healthy for an animal to eat a frog.
No.
They can mess them up pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and we're like, no. So I'm sure our neighbors love us when we take him outside and prevent him from chasing frogs around. Well, I have worn my track shoes today because after the first week, I realized I wasn't fully prepared to keep up with your brother, but I'm ready today.
He's always been energetic. Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
And it's really fun conversation.
Yes, it is. It is.
And challenging. I think he's got a real gift for vision.
Yes, definitely.
And he's learned over his years to kind of tune up with the Spirit. And you find that God uses the things that are at hand in the timing that he needs. And he talked about that, I think, in the first episode, where it's really important to assess what you have, and where you are and what you can do with it. And just because somebody down the street is doing X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that that's what you need to be doing for the situations and circumstances you are in, and the people that are a part of that local body too.
Yep.
But it takes all of us filling in different gaps and situations to do the work that God needs us to do. And so I just really find that empowering. And I still would say it's going to be exciting when we have the leadership that God selected for us here, and just being ready to dive into whatever that vision is. Yeah. And just do more good work.
Well, I've been hoping and praying we're going to have something soon to let everybody know about, breaking news here on the Northside Now, but we don't today. And so how about let's jump back in with Pastor Ted up at Granger Community Church. If you've listened to last week's episode, you're in for a treat, and you've probably been hanging on all week to get this finished up because you probably were left hanging. So we're going to jump back in right now. And so here we go.
I would call 7,000 on a weekend a pretty large church. But one of the things I think about when I think about Northside, and there have been times where because I've been at the church for pretty much the same time you were, and plus given a little hiatus there for a while, but I have sometimes this need. I wish Northside could be bigger. And that's not because I want, more members or more size. I just want more people to know about Christ. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that in some ways that growth doesn't happen unless you're focused on the little stuff.
Oh yeah.
The relationships. And like you said, Ted, that is so biblical, following Christ's example of those relationships and how they were ultimately the ultimate importance. And then God works through all of that to grow, if that's the season that your church is in or whatever. And so I have to remind myself that the focus isn't we want to get bigger. The focus is we want to show Christ better. And so that's, I think, a super reminder in this season that we're in, Glenn, is focusing on the stuff that's really, really, truly important. And I think that's sort of the theme that I've heard so many times coming out of the COVID year, is really focusing on what really is important. Peel all the onion layers away and get to the heart of the matter. Yeah. And that's really exciting.
One phrase, it totally is, you're spot on. One of the phrases that I've liked to use, instead of I wish we were bigger or whatever, is honestly, I want to be more usable by God. Mm. I could say I want to make more of an impact or influential. I just want to be more usable. Whatever that means. Whether that means small and lean and let's go like a SEAL team, or whether that means a massive army of love. I don't know. I didn't make the plan. God did. And he's executing his plan and purposes. I just know I want to be more usable. And I want our church family to be more usable. That God, when he's looking around this community for us, there are lots and lots of churches that if you know anything about Jesus, you walk right in and you know what a narthex is, and you're great. And all of that, it's fine. They say go to John, and you're not looking for John. You open up a Bible, you know. But I'm looking around at 300,000 plus unchurched in our Michiana area, and I'm wondering if God the Father sometimes goes, yeah, well, what about all the rest of my children? Who can I trust them with? Where they won't walk in feeling like an idiot, where something will be simple and clear and yet not shallow. Simple and shallow are not the same thing.
Right.
The truth is simple. And yet there is a step for everyone. So the further in you go, the further you can go. All sorts of things. So I want to be so trusted by God that he is willing to use us wherever he wants to use us. But that in no way are we limiting his ability. Well, we never limit his ability. I believe we limit our impact because we limit our willingness to be used for whatever he wants to use us for. And so I think that that's actually focusing on usability and what does that require? What does being used by God and whenever and wherever and however he wants to use us, what does that require of us? Well, whatever that answer is, that's what health looks like. Because healthy things grow. But if you're not healthy, and I'm not just talking physically, I'm not just talking about how biblically based you are, those are all important. But the mindset of the church family and their role in this life and their call, if that's not healthy, it's not going to grow either in numbers or in impact. It's just not going to be as usable. And God will find some other way.
You're talking about there at the end, healthy family. And
oh yeah,
how do you get your children and youth and those young adults that are maybe single and not married and in the family way yet? How do you get them involved, and how do you work as a ministry team with those program zones to work on this consistent vision that the church is moving towards? How do y'all go about that way?
We have a lot of camaraderie on our staff team. First of all, we have a lot of interdepartmental, what we call WIN teams, which stands for What's Important Now. So we might have a particular thing we're trying to get accomplished, and we bring people from different departments together to accomplish it. We know that most organizations, especially one as large as ours, is always going to drift towards silo ministry. It's always going to drift towards separation, not true collaboration, just for ease and all of that. They're not necessarily intending to do it, but that's where we're going to drift. And so the first thing is just how do you intentionally bring in collaboration and camaraderie on your staff team? That's one thing. Because if you don't have camaraderie on your staff team, then the kids pastor or director is not going to be talking highly of the young adult person. Because not that they don't like it.
Sure.
There's nothing to share. As opposed to how we naturally are a witness to good restaurants or good anything, a good product on Amazon. We naturally share what we care about or what we are impressed by. But if you're never around people, there's no opportunity to truly care or be impressed by them unless you're just asked, hey, how's the youth person? Then you'll answer.
Yeah.
But people know, they have a sense psychologically of what you really care about by what you initiate. And so camaraderie is really, really important. Another thing that we do is we remind our congregation all the time. It's so funny. I'm talking to you guys, and I call it congregation. I never say congregation around here. It's our audience. It's our crowd, but I'm feeling churchy. When we're talking to our people, we say all the time, we believe around here, kids and students aren't just the church of tomorrow, they're the church of today.
Sure.
I say that phrase probably every third weekend. I'm saying something like that. They're not just the church of tomorrow, they're the church of today. That's why we have our sixth graders on up in our main service, because we want to facilitate intergenerational conversations on the way home. We believe that the strongest ministries, as demonstrated by Jesus and the early church, are intergenerational, not multi-generational, where there's just a bunch of different generations in the same room. They are woven together. They are learning and growing from each other and with each other. So our discipleship pathway, all that stuff, sixth grade on up, you can have a sixth grader at a table with a 70-year-old and their brothers in Christ or their sisters in Christ, and that's okay. Doesn't have to be chaperoned. And so you have an emphasis on multi-generational, which a lot of that comes out of Fuller Institute.
Yeah.
Growing Young. We're a part of a lot of research cohorts at Fuller Growing Young was a book that came out with a few years ago, and that's been a good book for us. Also, all the Orange curriculum, Orange philosophy coming out of North Point and Reggie Joyner. We really believe in that sort of philosophy that we're going to bring truth and we're going to combine it with the love of the home and we're going to make something special. But it is focusing on the family upstream, all the components of the family. We're talking about them. We're not separating them out. We're going to have some family nights, but not every night is family night.
Yeah.
We are going to put our money where our mouth is. We are going to have the best camps around. When we do something for our kids or students, it's going to be top notch. Because again, whether we like it or not, our culture is judging how much you value something many times by how much money you put into it.
Yeah.
It's all about time, energy, attention, and money. And where you put in those four things, you're going to have a relationship and you're going to be able to communicate value. And so it'd be interesting just to do a generational audit in your church. What do we do? Where's our time, energy, attention, and money going with regards to our kids, our students, our young adults, whatever? And you're not headhunting here. It's just an audit.
Yeah.
Let's just face reality. What is our current reality? Right or wrong, if we don't know reality, we actually can't ever build towards hope, because I believe true hope is, I define it as this. Hope is, in this reality, we expect God will use it for good. So we're not denying reality. In this reality, we are expecting God to use it for good. So we don't have to be afraid of reality, even if it's really bad news. In this reality, let's become aware of reality, and now let's expect God to do something with it. And we're going to enter into His strategic mind, and we're going to figure out together with Him in pace of the Spirit what our next step is.
One of the things you said, Ted, was you referenced culture. And I wonder what you think about the thought, well, we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world, and how that contrasts with meeting people where they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think people confuse. I think they confuse it all the time. I mean, Jesus Himself prayed, right, not to take my followers out of the world, but just to protect them from the enemy. So He really unpacked that when it's in the world, not of the world, really what He's talking about is all that God desires is committed to God, that they are not going to be swayed or in any way overtaken by the enemy and fleshly desires and all that stuff. So much of that in the world, not of the world, is not about outward behavior. It's about inward momentum. So it's hard to judge outside of yourself whether or not someone else is in the world but not of the world.
Right.
And so for me, when I think about something being of, I think about structure. So a house is in a neighborhood, but is it of wood or is it of metal, right? It's all about the inside stuff. And so the good news is God does tell us how to prove whether or not the inside is good. Look at the fruit. And so we've gotten critiqued many times by doing a secular song, for instance, on the weekend. Many times, for years. And the issue is, strategically, Christian music, as wonderful as it is, and I do love Christian music, it is horrible about introducing a problem and just sitting in it, not resolving it. Every Christian song has a resolution at the end. It's Jesus, which is true. But the world has problems, and they're just sitting in it. And they feel hopeless and helpless, and a secular song that they might have heard on the radio that they connect with and go, oh, wow, this feels familiar. My heart might be open. I may not feel as much as an outsider here. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, what that song just said, I'm feeling that right now. And it's not that easy just to say, give it to God. It's just not. It doesn't feel like that to me. And then the message comes along that addresses that specific problem where they are specifically sitting. And then we have worship music or something at the end that helps resolve and gives a time of reflection and resolution.
I just think that when we get hung up on the culture conversation, we really miss the God moments that we could have and the conversations that we could have and the openness that we could have, because we're so focused on, well, that's not churchy, or that's not obviously the dreaded, that's not the way we've always done it kind of thing.
Sure.
But I do like your focus there, though, that it's what the house is made of. And so the house could look, whatever way it could look, but what's the inside look like, or how's it made? And the proof is in what's on the inside, which has always been true, right? We all look totally different.
Yeah.
But hearts can be the same and beautiful, even with a not so pretty exterior. So,
which is why there's so many more warnings in Scripture about not judging someone than there is about not being of the world. I mean, the concern when you focus on Jesus and his teaching is don't you dare become a Pharisee where you're just judging on the outside based on some scorecard. Don't do that. I'm telling you, just don't do that. And then you actually see Jesus being graded by that scorecard and the disciples and the early church, which should give the church all this evidence to go, oh, well, no matter what we do, we shouldn't be judging each other. That's been made clear. And yet we continue to fall into, I'm going to judge negatively based on what I see. There is some precedent on judging positively by the fruit that you see. It's just a trap that Jesus wants to free us from and say, hey, actually, don't even worry about that. That's totally not your role. That's not your job. Like, I'm the judge, but even I, in John 3:17, even I didn't come into the world to judge the world. I came to save it. I didn't come to condemn it. Now, someday I will. I'll sit on the throne. You better watch out. But right now, that's not the job. That's not the job. And if it's not my job, Jesus, I think, says, it's definitely not your job. So, again, you don't need to make crazy assumptions one way or the other. But let's not judge about that in the world of the world. Man, there's so much distraction in the church. So much time, energy, attention, and money focused on judgment. And I just wonder, what would that look like if that was unleashed for the lost? If that was unleashed for discipleship in other ways? Could one of the strategies of the enemy, he knows he can't stop us, but could he just distract us with these ancient vulnerabilities of humanity like judging and blaming? And I think that is indeed what he does oftentimes within the church.
Well, that's good. I had visions of, while you were talking there, Jesus calling the Pharisees a brood of vipers. And I never remember him ever saying anything like that to any Samaritan, to any person that would come, heal me, Lord, heal me. I never heard him call them a brood of vipers. Oh, how dare you come ask me for healing? Right. How dare you be different over there, you Samaritan? But you person who think you got it all set and you're pointing your finger everywhere. You're a viper. There's a lot of truth in all of that good gospel right there.
Yeah. Hey, one of the questions that I've thought about is definitely during the COVID year, but when you get to a certain size, I don't even know what that mark is, but I imagine there's a challenge to feel connected, to stay connected, not only as an individual, but as a church body. When you have various different services, I think in Northside's history, sometimes this has played a role. We only come to the 9:00 service, or we only come to and I know, Ted, you guys have Saturday services too, but what do you think is a simple, maybe it's not simple, but what's kind of a key thing to making sure a church and people stay connected?
I think it is somewhat simple, is don't ever confuse the method with the true source. So don't confuse the method with the truth. So the truth is relationship connects people. As you get bigger, you have to develop different relationships. But don't think that a particular method is going to automatically bring relationship. Well, if you just had an event for young adults, that'll just bring relationship. Well, not necessarily. Don't hope more in the method than you do in the truth. That's a confusion part for a lot of churches, I believe. It's mixed up because they either forget about the truth of relationship or certain methods. They just see exponential growth. And so well, that must be the key. And they try to push that onto something else or project it somewhere else. And that can be dangerous. So that's one thing. The other thing is it really does depend on what you're talking about. People will value what they hear valued. If you're not, don't mean you guys in particular, but the church overall, if the platform or the podium in your case, if whoever is speaking there is not talking about connectedness and relationship, then why would you expect it to be valued? I mean, why would you expect to see it?
Right.
There are some things, vision leaks so badly that there are some things that somebody, elders, pastor, somebody has to decide, hey, these are things we're talking about all the time. And we're going to find different ways, creative ways to talk about it, but we're talking about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we cannot let it slip. If it slips, then we might be vulnerable to replacing the truth with a method. And then when the method doesn't work, then we start replacing the truth with some other church's method, which usually doesn't work either. Because now you're forgetting about, oh, God has us in this place with who he has for us for a specific reason to meet the needs that we're supposed to meet. And again, not to say that we can't learn from other churches. We certainly can. But this hope that we have in another church's method to solve a particular problem, we just got to be careful. Sometimes that works. Sometimes, though, the danger, even if the problem does get fixed, is now our hope is misplaced. And that is way more dangerous than whatever the problem was initially.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking, UT Vol fans stay connected on social media and all kinds of, and they're pretty passionate no matter what part of the world they live in, and, too bad our churches can't be a little more like that. Too bad we don't have a conduit like a Facebook group or something, which even though maybe I go to the 9 o'clock service, but let's get passionate about that outreach event, or whatever. So,
yeah, I mean, we're doing a whole series, this next series on the theology of fun.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I think fun is very sacred, actually. And UT Vol fans, they're talking because they're either complaining and heartbroken.
Yeah.
But really, they're just missing fun. They're just missing fun.
Exactly.
Like, it's exciting to them.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to try to conjure up excitement if people aren't excited.
Right.
People can smell it a mile away. It's like, you're not really excited about that. And yet what spread the gospel during Jesus' time and the early church, we don't have to overcomplicate it. People were excited and they had to share it.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So is the message exciting? Is the method exciting? Is there anything that someone who doesn't care about God would go, I'm interested?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wesley gets credit for this quote, but a lot of people say he didn't say it, is, set your church on fire and people will come watch it burn. And that can be good or bad, but but that's his point. Is allow the Spirit, work with the Spirit, like you said, keep step with the Spirit. What's going on with your community, with your people, and do what you're called to do. And people are going to come watch. They're going to come want to be a part of that. And if that's important to an old circuit rider, that's training a bunch of lay people to keep speaking to other people, is sure very pertinent to us today.
Well, and one of the things, Glenn, we've talked about tons of times. I think about it in terms of gardening sometimes, but we can't make the harvest big.
Oh no, yeah.
We plant the seed. Mm-hmm. And there's some things we do along the way. We can definitely do some things to kill it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the nature and the beauty of creation that makes the harvest full. And ultimately, it's God doing that. The same, I think, is true when it comes to people. So many times I've heard people have conversations about, I just want to save them. I want to pull them out of what's going on. Well, that's God's work.
Yeah.
And you need to be clear about what we can do and what we are called to do. And it's a lot simpler than that. And I think you sort of alluded to, Ted, when you realize that it's simple, don't make it too complicated, that frees you. That gives you a sense of empowerment to continue it. And it does make you excited. There's definitely that feeling of, I do have some power there. And that's something that I think we oftentimes just forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the most fun thing that's going on in your congregation right now, other than the sermon series, which is going to be fantastic, I'm sure?
We're building towards a huge staff party. We're going to have fun stuff happening all over our community. But even more than that, I'd preach all day long. That's what's most fun to me. But we're really trying to get the idea that fun is sacred. It's so sacred that out of all the options that God could have come up with to help people worship him and remember him, he chose festivals. And I think there's something about that insight from him and strategy from him that he knew people can fake a sacrifice. They can't fake fun. You only consistently have fun with people that you like. And so if he can get his people to have fun in his presence, remembering him, well, all of a sudden, as the enemy, how do you fight that? You can't fake fun. And so it's a deeply sacred issue for me that I think the church has thrown away and has labeled it as unholy or disrespectful in some way. And yet simply the thought, I don't know if any of you have ever witnessed a miraculous healing before. I have several times. When that happens, people are yelling and screaming and jumping up and down, having the best moment of their life. And that is what it was like to walk with Jesus. Right. That was happening all over the place. How is that not fun? How is that not exciting? And I got to share about it. And so when we refuse to focus on and give our time, energy, attention, and money to having fun, then what other option does the world have for this basic need of fun other than unholy and unrighteous things? Mm-hmm. And so I just think that there's a tremendous pathway forward with the theology of fun. People always tell me I should write a book. I just never slow down enough. But there's just a lot there. And unfortunately, guys, I gotta run to go pick up one of my kids from fun they're having at soccer camp.
Good.
But I just really appreciate this call. I love what you guys are doing. I love just, Kevin, I'll talk all day long, which is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, I'm not saying that's great. I appreciate talking to people who care and who want to see truly what it would look like for men and women, boys and girls, to be all in for the true message of Jesus Christ and all that means, not just in knowledge, but in true compassion and action in every component of our lives. I think you could change the world. I just believe it.
Well, that's what I think we're about. And so we really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to talk with us. You've got a connection to this church, and so it was cool to kind of reconnect that. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll keep praying for you. Thanks a lot.
We will see you.
All right, man.
Bye, brother.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
Well, I just feel like I got some work to do.
Yeah.
We got some big things ahead of us. I think that I've really been challenged to try and simplify things, but some really good stuff to think about. I think I always appreciate hearing different perspective and point of view that's from a Christ perspective. And so I'm really thankful and glad that we could get this to work out. And Ted had some time in his schedule.
Yeah, and that the phone line would work long enough for us to get most of it done. It's just hard. And
there were some times where
it was falling off,
dropped off and whatnot. But I think the point.
I think one of my largest takeaways is just something I learned over the last, I'm going to say 2 years, really. And it's something it's like eating right and trying to lose weight. You know what you're supposed to do. You know what your body will respond to. Really, most everybody does. I mean, some people, you have a health issue or whatever, but something new or some kind of new challenge. But we all pretty well know what to do for the most part. We just choose not to do that.
Right.
But over the last couple of years, you had to make the choice of what kind of media you were going to listen to and pay attention to. And if you just drowned yourself in it, it altered even your whole being.
Right.
Well, if we as a church sit around and we listen to what Barna is saying and what this poll is saying and what this book writer is putting out and what this thing is, that if we listen to that more than we listen to the voice and the movement of the Holy Spirit in this congregation or in this audience, this group of people, like Ted puts it, if we do that more than building relationships with one another here and in our families and in our friends at school and work, our relationships, and reaching out and bringing people into the flock, I'm not even going to necessarily say even into this building,
right,
but just into this flock. If we listen to all of what church should be today and what church ought to be, then we just need to go home. We really do. Because we don't need to listen to any of that. We need to just do what we know we do. And that's exactly what I heard Ted saying. Do what you do. You don't have to do what everybody else does. Do what you do. Now, I mean, it's like you said, now what other people do could help you. It could change a little bit, but Northside needs to be who it is. We definitely need to put on our track shoes and get after it. But everybody does. It's like me in my own personal life and with the youth and providing a little bit better vision for them to grasp a hold of it, make it a little more clear. And I own that. Right there. You know, it's easy to do. It's easy to get complacent. It's easy to get in that rut and listen to too many voices. We just need to listen to the Lord, and things will change.
And the thing that challenged me too in this episode is the message that I am portraying, whether in the words that I say, in the things that I do, worth sharing? Is it worth sharing? Because it should be.
Yeah.
If we're living in right relationship with Jesus and with his Father, our Father, it should be worth telling. It should be interesting and worth telling. And so I'm not sure that mine is, you know, and so that's something that was challenging me. And I think, like it was said, it really doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it out to be all the time. It's things like loving the person in front of you, you know, even little stuff. And it all can't be little like this, but holding a door for somebody, just saying a kind word to someone. I know that any of that can be used by God to do something in a moment, right? But it needs to be more of a rule instead of an exception for all of us.
And since Patrick's not around, and we talked a lot about these kinds of things on this podcast earlier, I mean, it's almost like a Jedi who has a cool lightsaber, and they're all unique and different, but he's waiting for the next version to come out. No, just take your cool lightsaber that you built that may be old now or whatever, and just go do the work that the Jedi is there to do.
Right.
And be who you're called to be. You know, go do the work with the tools that you have, because you all have them. They're all inside of you. They're all right there. Of course, we need to encourage one another and help each other get them out and do a little of that training, you know, do a little, what was that little ball that Luke Skywalker zapped him, you know, it's like, you know, but we all need that encouragement and that training, those mentors, those sages. And then we need young people to kick us in the pants and say, let's go. Come on. You're moving too slow, old people, you know, and show us how to do it. And we don't need to go, well, wait till you get old enough. No, let's show them now, you know. I love the difference that he said between intergenerational and multi-generational. And multi-generational is just a bunch of people in a room together.
Right.
And that was like been a catchphrase of the church.
Yes.
Do multi-generational ministry. That's what you need to do.
Right. So much of it is the words we use and the things we do to try. And I think the intentions are good, right? We want to introduce Christ to anybody and everybody because we know what it means to us. But when we get hung up on, we have to use this curriculum, and I'm not trying to judge or bash anybody.
It is just what it is.
Yeah, I'm challenged. And invigorated and excited. Yeah. All of those above.
Good conversation. Yep. Thanks for getting us in touch with your brother. And, and that's what's fun is, you know, I didn't know Ted and stuff whenever they were here as little kids, you know? Right. That would have been fun. And so whenever I've seen enough pictures, and I was here before the new buildings and some of that stuff, and the finishing the renovation on the sanctuary, I think some damage had happened to it, the new sanctuary. Yeah. I remember seeing it without the carpet in it, and it looked like a construction zone. And my first memories of Northside's property. And so I can just imagine, and I've heard the stories, you know, the farmhouse. It had to be fun over here on old 2571 North Island.
Well, it was different. I had forgotten about it until he mentioned it last week when he was talking about no front parking lot. Yeah. Yeah, it used to be just a big open yard.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures that way. And there's a lot of the youth don't realize that our 6th or 7th graders were born when we did Hope Hall. Oh, yeah. So they don't ever remember Northside. Right. So they don't know that there was carpet in the gym. And it was nasty and gross and disgusting. And it was the best thing we ever did here. I'm telling you, it's the best thing we ever did was pull that nasty stuff up. It was so disgusting. Yeah. It had a lot of life in it, though. I mean, that carpet had seen a lot of life happen in it. Yeah. And that's the reason I've not finished my research on how many people are pastors that grew up here at Northside or were a part of it. I got to do that.
I'd still be interested to hear that one. Let's see what else we got. We talked about the trip to Israel.
Yeah, the trip to Israel, and that is going on. Definitely get in touch with Gary if you're interested in that. Yeah, I know Gary loves going over there. And I know the folks, you know, Randy and Mitzi went. I know they really had a big time. I know several people that have gone, and they just have really, really, really enjoyed that. How was your 4th of July?
It was good.
Good.
Yeah, it was good. I think we took a little time just to breathe.
Yeah.
And kind of excel. This summer's just been really chaotic and busy, and we were just hoping for just a break a little bit. We had some people traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. How about yours?
It was good. It does feel funny that when we were cranking everything back up, happened kind of in summer or late spring. And it does feel like it got really busy at a time that my rhythm is kind of slowing down a little bit, or it's busy in a different zone. But I know some people are still on break, and we got Vacation Bible School coming up here in another week. But in July, I know you're used to June having green sheets. We're doing that in August. But in July, we are doing 2 different kinds of outreach things. And we talked about those before. And one of those is bringing toys for the local law enforcement folks and the first responders and those kinds of things for them to take out when they go on calls with the little kids. So there's big drop-off boxes. Now, does anyone have any idea who's winning, the youth or the adults?
I think it's the kids, isn't it?
Well, if they're not, come on, kids, you need to be. I haven't looked at the boxes lately.
Like Ted said, the future of the church is now.
Yeah.
Or they're not the future of the church, they are the church. Or
he said that, but gosh, I've said that 1,000 times. And I want to tell you something. In this very church right here, he was talking about how the 6th graders.
Yes.
I hadn't been here but just a few years, and we were at a board meeting, and they were talking about doing a youth-only worship service.
Okay.
And taking them out of worship, the youth, which at that time, would have been a good chunk of humans, and putting them into their own worship service down here in the gym. That was hip, the thing to do.
Right.
And I just listen, you're going to have to go find yourself a new youth pastor if you're going to do that, because you're going to hurt your church if you break that generational. Right. When he said that, I almost laughed out loud, because I remember being so bold to go, no. I know that's the cool thing to do, but you're going to have to go find someone else to do. I mean, I was like, if I say stuff like, my wife would kill me for stuff I say. She's like, you got a family, you goofball.
Yeah.
So also we're collecting bottles full of change for birth choice. We've done this before, and we're doing this all of July. And it's our 3rd quarter mission, both of these from the outreach team. There's flyers everywhere, and you can drop these off. You can also write a check, if you don't want to. Maybe you've already gotten rid of all your change and you want to help out. But, we've done really wonderful work on both of these in the past, and we're doing them new. We haven't done this in a really long while. So definitely, I know you may be in and out and you got other things on your mind. You got green sheets worried about in August, along with school and a bunch of other things. But definitely don't forget our 3rd quarter projects from the outreach team, because they really do serve a lot of people, especially those little kids, whenever they're having a tough day or tough night going on.
Well, we talked about, doing the things we can when we can, being open and available. And this is one of those things.
Exactly.
All of us, whether we feel like we're well-to-do or not, are extremely and richly blessed.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so I think it's something that we all should challenge ourselves to be a part of.
Definitely so.
Can. Yep.
Well, the next time we gather and you hear the voices, the 3rd Musketeer will be back.
Yes. It may just be himself. We'll just take a vacation.
Hey, there we go.
Nah, we probably shouldn't.
No, probably won't do that, but that might be funny.
Yeah, we're still working on the live option and some other stuff.
We are working on the live option and getting some new voices in for you to meet from different ministry areas here at the church. And if you have something, you would love for us to collab about, talk about, you'd love to come in here and sit down with us and chat. Come on, we would love to have you. But just get in contact with us, the podcast at northsidejackson.com, or on our Instagram page, or with Patrick or any of us on our personal socials, or even here on this podcast deal. But definitely share, pass along these podcasts to your friends. And not so much that makes us do anything other than just we want everyone to hear about their church, and as much as what's going on at Northside Now and in the life of this little area here.
Right. So. Yeah. And we, of course, just like we did today, we have conversations with topics that are sort of timely and relevant to where our church family is right now. But we always try to have conversations from a Christian perspective. And so if you enjoy that kind of thing, we'd be very honored to have you be a part of the conversation. If you're interested in some of the past episodes that we've done, you can go online, you can search through those and take a look. Definitely, if you've missed a few episodes, go back and listen to them. It's definitely a good way to fill a little bit of time. I think that's about it for today.
Well, thanks for podcasting with us, guys. So until next time, this is Glenn.
And this is Kevin.
And that was Patrick. See you soon.
Bye-bye.